Assalamu alaikum. My name is Arif Mansuri and I'm the host of The Mansuri Show, the show that is best described as Milaunga, Bataunga, Dikhaunga. Your link to everything Pakistani is straight from California, The Mansuri Show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very important guest with us today. We have Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez with us today, who has represented California in Congress for 20 years. We will have a talk with her today. First of all, I'd like to welcome you to our studios and to the Mansuri Show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you and your viewers.
Thank you. Now, you are running for the Senate seat in the upcoming elections. And your opponent is Kamala Harris. And both of you are Democrats. So I would like to ask you, what are the major differences between you and her?
That's right. For the first time in an election, there are two Democrats for the United States Senate. It's been 24 years. So for 24 years, we've had the same two senators in San Francisco. Now we're going to get to choose a new one. Ms. Harris is from San Francisco, and I'm from Southern California. Our difference is because we are Democrats. I have a voting record of 20 years. Everyone can know exactly how I voted. They can see that I've been a good, even great Democrat, some would say. So the difference is really the experience. Ms. Harris has never done legislation. She's never worked with other legislators. She's not worked in Washington, D.C. I have all of that experience. And most importantly, I have national security, foreign relations, and homeland security experience. So I've worked with our U.S. military. I've gone to Iraq and Afghanistan, to the Horn of Africa, around the world, to the very dicey situations to see what we need to do there. I've met with the world leaders. I've talked to them about counterterrorism and working together and intelligence gathering and how we do that. I've worked on homeland security to secure and make sure that families are safe in America. I have the experience. I have the national security experience. I have the legislative experience. And you know, I'm a daughter of California. My parents are immigrants. They're from Mexico. They came with nothing. They have this incredible story of being the only parents in the history of the United States to send two daughters to the United States Congress. So we love America. We love California, and I've been serving it, and I want to continue to serve it.
You talked about your work in Congress. So you have served on some of the very important committees, and I'd like to ask you to please talk about that a little bit.
So actually my expertise in the Congress is in nuclear proliferation and non-proliferation. So I work a lot with Pakistan and India and the conflicts sometimes going there. I worked a lot on the Iran deal, for example. I worry and work on North Korea and the crazy man over there. I am the voting member in the NATO Parliament Alliance for the United States. I worry about Putin and what's going on in the Ukraine, national missile defense, biological and chemical warfare. So the really technical, really serious types of warfare are the ones that I work with the Pentagon and our intelligence agencies to ensure that if I do my job right, the conflicts are coming down and you never hear about the countries where we might go to war.
You have a very long, illustrious career working as a member of Congress. What are some of the highlights of your career?
Well, you know, I've seen everything in 20 years. I mean, let's face it, America has been in 2 ground wars, the longest wars of our history, really, Afghanistan and Iraq. Deciding, for example, when we were legislators and the world wanted to go into Iraq, right? The Americans, and standing up and saying, I don't think this is a good idea, and voting no in Iraq. That was momentous.
What was your reason to vote no?
Because I know our military very well. We are great at winning battles. Sure. We won every battle in Vietnam, but we didn't win the war, right? So it's not just about can you go in and take out Saddam Hussein, for example. It's like what's going to take place. What you cannot create a vacuum and not know what you're going to help to build there. And I saw that we didn't really have the ability to build the way we needed to in Iraq. First of all, you always need to have the neighbors in the neighborhood helping you, right? And there are just proxy wars going on, as you and I know. We see it in Syria. In fact, you know, the conflict in Syria, the destabilization of Libya, what's going on in Yemen, the proxy fights of Russia and the United States and others in there, the destabilization of governments to this lawlessness in Iraq and Libya, it's hurting all of us. This is the rise of ISIS, for example, which is not good for any of us. And so the answer is, before you decide to break something, you have to know what are you going to put in its place and who's going to be there to help you pick up the pieces. And I did not see a plan, a good plan to do that. And so I said, it's not for us to be there, not in that way. And I think time has shown that I was right.
Absolutely.
If there's one vote that my colleagues in the Congress wish they could redo, it is that vote of Iraq. But there's been other votes. Right after 9/11, when everybody was scared, we were all scared, and let's face it, we voted on a thing called the so-called Patriot Act, right? I voted no. Very few people did. Why? Because it was about our civil liberties. You see, I have this belief that when you're an American, whether you were born here or whether you're naturalized, when you're an American, this Constitution of ours gives us these unalienable rights, civil rights, human rights, and that especially in a time when we're scared and we're more apt to give them away, that's the time when we have to protect them most. Because once we give them away, it's very difficult to get those rights back. So I stood up and I said no, because my civil rights are important to me, and I would protect anybody's right of freedom of religion, of freedom of speech, of your government not opening into your life. You know, what do they know about us and what they don't? Look at what happened with Snowden. He proved to a lot of my colleagues that there was a lot of our information that these different government agencies and intelligence agencies were using, and we didn't even know about it. So that was a very important. Here's another very important vote: the Wall Street bailout. Look, I told you there are 2 daughters in the United States Congress in my family, the only family. But I also have 2 brothers who both lost their homes. Okay? So our family lives the life of a normal family. They lost their jobs, they lost their homes. I voted no on the Wall Street bailout because it gave money to the banks.
Right.
It didn't give us back our homes, it didn't help us, it didn't give money to us for our homes, and people are still suffering from that. If you look at the number of people who lost their homes and are homeless, look at the homeless situation we face. It is all because of that recession. So 20 years, I've seen a lot. I've seen so much. But I have always been on the side, I've always stood up, regardless of party, and I've always stood up on the side of the people. And I think that that kind of pressure and being able to take the right vote is what makes me the right person to go to the Senate.
You talked about the civil rights and the people. Now, this current presidential election, it has been very contentious, very dividing, and it has created an atmosphere where a lot of minorities and also like Muslim community and what have you are feeling threatened. They're concerned about their future in America. They're wondering if this rhetoric, after the election, what's going to happen. So what would you like to tell them?
Look, the United States is a country of immigrants. And that's how it started. We came here looking for, in particular, the people who founded the United States, the first immigrants, were being persecuted for their religion in Europe, and they came here. So of anything that is the most important, it is this freedom of religion and not to be persecuted for it. So I don't believe that Muslim Americans should fear because of this election. Look, there have been things said about Mexican Americans. I'm a Mexican American. There have been bad things said about women in this election. Almost every group has been tarred, right? So I would say that this is a country of immigrants. Our Statue of Liberty, give me, you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses yearning to be free. And because we are that, we're going to continue to be that. So we will get past this time. There have always been, whenever new immigrant community comes, there's always a backlash against them. But we can do this.
Well, that's very well said. Now, I would like to ask you about the major issues in California. So, we are in the middle of one of the worst droughts ever. And, you have done a lot of work on, getting water for Orange County a long time ago. And so I'd like to ask you, what are your plans about what are you going to do about the water if you're elected?
Absolutely. And you asked in the beginning what some of the differences. My opponent, when she was asked, what's your water plan for California, because we're in a drought, and she said conservation. Period. One word. We cannot conserve our way out of the problem we find ourselves in. Now, conservation, recycling of water. You know that right where we sit today, right now, that 20 years ago, I began to build the largest factory in the world to recycle all our water here. So all of the water used here in the north portion of Orange County is completely recycled. It's the only water secure area of all of California. But you know what? We can do this in Los Angeles. We can do this in other places. I know how to do it. And of course, in the 1960s was the last time that California built any new infrastructure for the conveyance of water, for the storage of water. We need to do all of that. It's going to require conservation, recycling, new water infrastructure, conveyance of water. That's my plan. And I know how to do it because I've been doing it.
I'd like to ask you about various other problems that California is facing. Of course, the immigration reforms and, the education. But before we do that, I'd like to take a short break. Please keep watching. We will be right back. Welcome back. We have Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez with us, who has served in U.S. Congress for 20 years now, and she's now running for the U.S. Senate from California in the upcoming election. So, Congressman, we were talking about the civil liberties earlier, and now one of the issues that we in California are concerned about a lot is the immigrants. And so there is, of course, there is a need for immigration reform. So I'd like to ask you what you have in mind to address that.
So immigration in the Congress has always been led by the Hispanic caucus, by the group of members who are Hispanic in the Congress. Immigration is for all communities. But we have traditionally taken the lead. So inside of that caucus, we have a task force that does immigration reform, and that's Luis Gutierrez and myself were the co-chairs. So what do we envision? As soon as we had a new president and we move forward with a new Congress, I believe we're going to find the votes that we need to do an immigration reform. The immigration reform, in my opinion, in order to get both the Republicans and the Democrats and get enough to pass something in both the Senate and the House, I believe that we're going to need three pieces to it. One is this whole issue of knowing who comes in and out of our country. Come on, guys, we're a sovereign nation. We should get to decide. If we just left the borders open, everybody would come, and we can't do that. So, if we choose, if we say, okay, we're going to have this and you're going to have that, then we also have to have the mechanisms to keep people out and let people in. So good gates and fences, if you will. Right. I'm talking in a metaphor, not necessarily physically. Because remember that people come by airplane to the United States, they come by boat, so it's a big process. The second thing, those people who are already here, who are part of our community, and may have overstayed their visas, or their documents are expired, or they just came without anything, but they're really a part of America, we need to give them status in this country. A lot of them are in mixed families. Maybe the husband has work papers, the wife doesn't have anything, and the children are born here. So we just need to make sure, from a family value standpoint, that families stay together. And then the economy needs new immigrants all the time. Look, it's important to give American workers the chance at the jobs. But we look at the demographics, and we are going to need more immigrants. So we have to look at all the visas, and we have to consolidate and look at the number of visas, and we have to be able to expand when we need people to come and to decrease it a little when we don't need so many people. This is all required in immigration reform. I have a program, for example, that says if you come from a country like Pakistan or someplace and you're doing your PhD here, well, when you finish, you have to go back because you're not allowed to stay. My plan would be that if you want to build a business and if you want to stay here, that you can, so that we keep that brain energy that we just educated, right? So that would be part of that comprehensive immigration reform that I would like to see happen here in the United States. And I think we're very close to being able to do it. And I would like to be one of the leaders to do it.
That is really a very important issue for immigrant communities, especially from Pakistan also, because a lot of doctors and engineers migrate from there, and they get very good education here, and just like you said, they have to go back because they cannot secure visas to work, the H-1 visas and what have you. So now, talking about education though, the education has become the most expensive thing lately. So
look, you're talking to somebody who has 8 children. Okay, so and they're grown now. But at any one time, my husband and I had up to 5 children in college. So I know how expensive it can be. So let me tell you, for example, 4 years ago when the president came to talk to the Congress and he did his State of the Union, he said he thought all community college should be free. Well, I agree with him. But in 4 years, have we done that? No. In California, there's only one community college where this year, if you entered as a freshman, you got free tuition for the year. Oh, it's the one down the street from me. We worked very hard in community with business and some money from the federal government and the state government and locally. So the entering freshman into Santa Ana Community College got free tuition this year. So I'm just not talking about what I'm going to do. We're actually doing it where I live. Here's another thing we did at the community college there. The community college usually gives you a 2-year degree. This past year, we got the California legislature to change the laws so that we can do 4-year degrees at our community college. That means that our students can stay at home and save money, can go to the community college, and instead having to transfer to a 4-year university where it costs more, like a Cal State Fullerton or a UCLA, they can stay at the community college and get their 4-year degree. It's less expensive. What other things have I done? Right now I carry 2 bills in the United States Congress. One, to double the size of the scholarship from the federal government. And the second one, to take that scholarship and to be able to use it year-round. Right now, you can only use it September to June.
Right.
But a lot of kids are taking classes during the summer because they want to finish in the 4 years
Right.
so they can get out and they can start to work. Right now, they can't use it in the summer. My bill would allow them to do that. And then, of course, refinance all the student loans. So sometimes you take out a federal loan, it's at 3%. You take out some private loans, they're at 6% or 9%. If you can refinance your house, why should you not be able to refinance all the loans that you have and bring them in at a 3% rate instead of having some at 9 or 10 or 8? So that's one of the programs I'm working on. So we are actually, because I've had that experience as a mother of so many children in college, to try to figure out how to bring down, how to get more money for the kids and how to try to keep the cost on the college down also.
Congresswoman Sanchez, you have had quite a bit of support from both sides of the aisle. So even in your Senate campaign, you have a lot of support from Republican side. I'd like to ask you, after the elections, regardless of who wins, Democrats or Republicans, what do you see the next 4 years like?
Well, first of all, you're right. I have always, because I'm a Democrat that has represented for 20 years, I'm more a Republican area. I know how to work with the Republicans. That doesn't mean that I give away my values or anything. It just means that I know how to talk with them and I know how to move them and know how to negotiate with them. And they have all said that they would prefer to see me than my opponent, because my opponent has no relationship and no experience doing that. And it has been a very hard election, especially when we see the presidential race. So it's Friday now. In a few days, this will be over, right? Tuesday, November 8th. Don't forget to vote. What happens the day after? I mean, people are worried about that. Don't be worried about that. This is America. We have a transition of power. Whether it's Republican to Democrat or Democrat to Republican or the same party. We have a transition of power, and we'll do it in a safe way. And you know what? And then we'll begin to rebuild. And those of us who know how to work with each other, we're going to be the ones who will begin the work. And then these people who have been fighting each other on both sides, they're going to have to come in and sit down and start working with us, because that's what America's about. We have politics, we have the election, we get done with that, and then we all work together to build for America. And it will happen that way.
Congressman, you had earlier touched upon this, but I'd like to ask a little bit more about your working with the Homeland Security Committee,
Sure.
House Committee. And so I'd like to ask you now, the Muslim community is made to be felt responsible for some of these things around the world and in the United States. And
look, we know that these people who are using Islam as the excuse for the violence they do, that first of all, they don't really understand Islam. And secondly, they're killing more Muslims than anybody else. I mean, look at ISIS. It's crazy. So the only way that we are going to fix this is with our Muslim allies. Egypt, Saudi Arabia has to really get on board in the right way, right? Jordan has been helping. All of these countries in that neighborhood, they need to get on board and help us. And more importantly, for us to protect America and our homeland, our Muslim American community has to be with us. We rely on them to help us to figure out how to fix this. So this whole idea that somehow Americans are going to start attacking Muslims or we don't like them or what have you, I think Americans that feel that way or think they feel that way, they're just afraid. I mean, what we have to do is we have to show them who we are, right? A lot of misperceptions about what a Mexican American is. We just have to stand up and we have to show them who we are. And that's what America's about. And as a government elected official, my job is to make it a safe place for us to be able to show each other who we are. But we need our Muslim American community to fix these issues of terrorism abroad and terrorism at home. We need them. We need them. We're not going to fix it without them.
Congressman, in the end, I would like to ask you if you have any message for your constituency here. If you would like to give a message through our television program as well as our newspaper to,
Absolutely. I would just say that, a lot of people are disillusioned with politics right now. They see all this craziness. They say, I'm not going to vote. I don't know who to vote for. I don't have a candidate. Look, you need to come and vote. You need to come and vote. When we don't vote, then the very few people who control the politics today will keep doing the same thing. If you're tired of the same thing over and over, then you have to put your voice in. And the way you put your voice in is you show up to vote. And hopefully you vote for Loretta Sanchez for the United States Senate, because I think I will be very good for you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just watched our discussion with Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, who's running for Senate election on November 8th. Please vote. It's a very important election. We urge you to please get out and get your vote in. We would love to continue to get your feedback. Please send your feedback at the address on your screen. Also, to watch the previous episodes of our show, please visit pakistanlink.com/ARY. That's about all the time we have today. Thank you for watching. Khuda Hafiz.